So let's look at CMS, and in our case we will look at WordPress specifically. But before that, what is a CMS? Well, according to Wikipedia, CMS is a system where you have some kind of central hub where you can administrate and update and edit and delete things into your website. So it should be some kind of central part where you can do all these modifications. So that is the kind of definition of a CMS. And if we look at WordPress then, well, WordPress is a CMS that is based on a program language that is called PHP, and it uses a database that is called MySQL. That means that you need a MySQL database up and running before you can even install WordPress. So that is important to know. And PHP, as the web browsers doesn't understand PHP, you need to run that on the server. That implies that you need a web server capable of running PHP in order to be able to install WordPress. And of course, you also need to be able to contact the database from the web server. That is probably clear. But some cases you might have the web server in one computer and the database is run in another computer, and then they of course need to be able to communicate in a way that is possible and secure. So when you install WordPress, you actually don't need to know anything about the database. Well, you need to know the database user and the database password and how to connect if there is a specific port or whatever that you need to know to connect to the database, or the database URL and so on. But when you then install WordPress, it installs all the database table that is needed. And WordPress is actually quite keen on the database table. So it is, compared to a lot of other CMSs, WordPress installs very few database tables. So when you have a WordPress installation, it feels kind of compact. There are advantages, but of course disadvantages with that one solution also. But anyway, you don't need to know about this one. And what you might need to have is, if you really install from scratch, well, then you might need to have some kind of tool that you can use to create that database. If you can log in via terminal to the server, well, then of course you can run the MySQL commands by yourself if you want to. But otherwise you usually have some kind of database tool, and most web portals have that, or they usually also have a one button click where you say I want a new database, and then you say the database name and the user for the database and the password, and then it takes care of everything for you. Or what is even more common is that they have some kind of control panel where you can either create the database, but also one click to get the WordPress up and running. So you say I would like to have WordPress, and then you wait a bit, and then it's done. So why did we select WordPress for this course? Well, there is one really big solution, or big answer to that one. And the answer is this. If we look at the competition, there is WordPress, then there is kind of nothing, and then there's kind of nothing, and nothing, and nothing, and then comes the rest. And WordPress is open source, and if you compare Wix and Squarespace are not, Joomla is the closest competitor that is also open source. That means that it is free to download, and you can install it on your own server for no money whatsoever. So therefore, if we compare them, well, WordPress is more than 5 times the closest competitor. And the trend is actually going in the WordPress favor. So today, according to WordPress themselves, or Automatic maybe, the company by them, 42% of all the web pages that you get to your browser comes from a WordPress server. So that is the biggest reason for selecting WordPress.